under the boat. There he's gonna come out the other side. Not a bad one. Well, we're up on Bellaire in the shallow reeds, individual pockets of reeds. Typically they'll have 2 or 3 fish in a pocket of reeds. They're bedding right at the base of the reeds. And we're looking for them to mark them and hopefully spin back around like we did the last one and able to catch them. These fish have pulled off, a lot of them. They started spawning about a week ago, but with all the cold weather, they just have pulled off, so there's not as many as normal. This has got 4 beds in it. There's not even a fish on any of these. So we'll just keep looking. We may only get 1 or 2 fish out of each patch. Maybe not even that many, but we're gonna go through them all and look at them. And, I mean, there's 100 acres of reeds here to look at, so we'll find a couple more. Look, it's a fish on here.
Mark has been fishing in this part of the state for quite some time now and is familiar with just about every major lake in the region. So even though we were a little early in the spawning season, Mark had a pretty good idea on where to find fish early on.
That's a mule there. If I can keep him on. Oh, look at there. He's not quite as big as I thought he was, but it's a big. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now there is a fish that's been caught a couple times already by somebody. His mouth is already scarred up. 1, 2, looks like 3 times he's been caught, but that's a nice 4-pounder. Well, this year I got up here on May 24th and I started on Skagmog, and it was on fire. There was a fish every 10 feet on a bed, and I really thought they were going to explode on the rest of the lakes. But as the week has gone by, the weather has gotten worse, and we're getting down into the high 40s at night, and these fish want this water to warm up even more, so they'll stay on the beds. These fish are pulling off. I went to Charlevoix and never even found a fish on a bed. Went to Mullet and found a few, but then went back and looked through there, and they were already gone. They pulled in, stayed for a day, and then pulled back off with this cold weather. So just waiting for the weather to get stable and have some good sunny weather. Put these fish back in the shallow and get them back in spawning mode. You know, usually it'll last till the second week of June anyway up here, especially the deeper lakes like Burton Mullet and Elk and Torch. We're on Bellaire and we're in skinny water today, but it's not uncommon for those lakes to find fish in 8, 10, 12 foot of water, but it really needs to be stable and warm up.
Despite the cooler conditions, we were still managing to find a few fish, but we were having to cover a lot of ground in order to do so. But that's all part of the game this time of year.
Well, today we've been on Bellaire, fishing reeds. Up north, in my opinion, that the bass spawn on the reeds first. They'll spawn on other things, but they really like spawning on reeds, and it seems that they spawn on them first. So it's a good place to start looking when you first get up north and early in the year is look for reeds, because that's usually where they are first. And that's what we're doing today because it's cold and not your typical spawn day by any means. It was 49 degrees when we got out here. So certainly not a typical spawn day. But we have found a few. Nope, not him. All right, we're gonna show you a few baits that I like to throw on beds. This first one is kind of new to everybody. It's called a Ned's rig. It's on a mushroom head. This isn't kind of bait that you can throw around reeds, but it's good for open beds. It's real sticky, little hook, light line. If you do need to go Texas rig, a small 4-inch worm, I prefer. This is a Zoom dead ringer, and the good thing about this little bait is that you Texas rig it and you can fish it on anything. But when it wears out, you just flip it around and you can fish it. These are very inexpensive, and this watermelon gold flake is my go-to bait, along with a few other guys that are into this bait. We really like them. You can't beat an Erie darter. When we were up on Walloon, they were really eating this bait, Charlevoix. I like the goby color with the white bottom the best on a painted head. The jig head is, you go by size. The lighter the better, but in some situations when it's windy, you got to go heavy. And that's another bait. The bait I was catching a lot of the fish up on Mullet Lake this week is just a regular old white Yamamoto with a Ned's Rig head on it, a mushroom head. And they seem to like it better than any other bait I was throwing up there. It's a real good bait. That's a good one there too. Today we're on Bellaire, and it's similar to all the glacier lakes in the north region, from Burton Mullet to Elk and Torch and Skagmog and Intermediate Chain, Leland, all these glacier lakes up here. And when you're coming up here to spawn fish, there's really just a few things you look for. Reeds, you look for sand flats that have clay veins, and that's the important part. Is you get up on a sand flat, you got to look for the clay. The sandgrass, as they call it, grows on the clay, and that's where the fish will lay their eggs and do their business, and that grass holds the eggs. Of course, rock edges and rock, and then wood, and those are the four basics that I look for when I come up. And you're always looking at edges when it comes to rock and any type of lay down wood. It doesn't have to be huge pieces of wood either, just small pieces of wood laying on the bottom. When you come up here, in my opinion, you start on the smaller lakes, the shallower lakes that warm faster. Look for the reeds, look for the grass edges, and any type of wood. And then there's everything else. I've caught fish off of engine blocks, chairs, buoy markers for sailboats, anything. So you look for those as well.
Mark and I ended up fishing for the better part of the day, and what started out as a cool and rainy morning turned out to be a pretty nice night on the water. Special thanks to Mark for inviting me out and for giving us all a few tips on how to catch smallmouth bass in northern Michigan.